A veterinary campaign group has accused the government of telling barefaced lies about the effectiveness of the ongoing badger cull in southwest England. The Prion interest group said that government claims of a reduced number of bovine TB cases in cattle as a result of the cull were badly wrong. The Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs said it's the right approach and has had a positive impact. Well, in a few moments, we're going to speak to Dr. Ian McGill, Director of the Prion Interest Group. But first, we're joined by our science correspondent, Pallab Ghosh, who's been taking a look at these claims for us. And barefaced lies, Pallab, this is pretty strong language. What's the concern?
Well, the vets are concerned about George Eustice, the farming minister's comments about the very first culls that started in Somerset and Gloucestershire. It's been 4 years, and it's about now that they may show whether it's reduced cattle TB in that area or not. As you know, the trials have been hugely controversial. People don't like culling badgers, and it's been done on the basis that it might have some beneficial effect. So it was with great eagerness that a progress report came out, trying to find out how well the culls had gone or not. George Eustice said that the culls seemed to be delivering results. However, on closer inspection, the report itself explicitly states that it can't say anything at all about whether they are delivering results, whether cattle TB is reducing or increasing. So the veterinary groups say that what George Eustice did was cherry-pick the results that best suited him and ignored the fact that it wasn't scientifically valid. But as you say, DEFRA, for its part, said that George Eustice looked at some of the positive statistics, and he was quite right to say that it was delivering results. But we'll hear from Ian McGill what he has to say about that.
Before we do, I want to ask you one other question, if I may, Pallab. The department, DEFRA, says its tests for bovine TB in cattle are 80% reliable. The vets say that's not the case. So, in your view, who is telling the truth?
Well, who can tell
Have
for
I put
sure?
you on the spot there?
No. So the thing is that on its hub,
Yes.
its TB hub that farmers use to seek guidance on the effectiveness of one of the tests, it says that it is 80% effective on average. Now, there's a broad margin for error, but it says that it's 80%. But there have been a number of studies which show that it's much less. Now, this is important because if this test that's being used in the most infectious areas is only half as accurate as it should be, then there are going to be more cases of cattle TB in cattle, in herds that have been cleared. So it may be the cattle that's spreading it to the cattle rather than the badgers.
Pallab Ghosh, our science correspondent, thank you for explaining that so clearly. That was terrific, thank you. And as promised, we can speak now to the lead signatory of that open letter to the UK's chief vet, Dr. Ian McGill, director of the independent research organisation Prion Interest Group. And we're very grateful for your time, thank you. Why, in your opinion, is the government telling barefaced lies?
Well, their own epidemiology report, as Pallab said, for a start, it cannot be used to decide whether badger culling has helped the disease levels in cattle. But of the report that came out in September, there was a dramatic fall in both incidence and prevalence before culling started, and then it plateaued. For year 4, the government used a calculated figure to say that the incidence, that's the risk of new breakdowns, is falling. But actually, we've looked at the 2018 figures, and there's been a huge spike in cases in the Gloucestershire cull zone. The new herd incidence is up by 55%. Now, if the government were correct with their 4th-year figures from the 2017 culls, the incidence and prevalence would be going down. Prevalence has gone up by 29%, or the number of herds infected has gone up by 29%, and the incidence it's gone up by 55%. So you know these are serious misclamations that they're saying here. These are basically barefaced lies because badger culling hasn't worked. You know, the incidence in cattle is going up again in the Gloucestershire cull zone, and that's just not acceptable for the minister or anyone else, in fact, to claim that badger culling's worked. It hasn't worked. We've proved that, and the cull needs to be called off.
Well, of course, you'll know that the department has said that the statements that they've made are absolutely correct, and the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs has said it was the right approach and has had a positive impact. I mean, why have they got it wrong? if you're saying that they have got it wrong?
They've got it wrong, partly because their test, as Palab said, is only 50% sensitive. But they've got it wrong because they've willfully made it wrong. They've gerrymandered the data. I mean, cherry picking is a kind of kind
But why would
word
they do
for
that?
it.
Sorry to interrupt.
What they've done...
Sorry to interrupt. Why would they do that?
Why would they do...
Yeah.
Well, they do that because they want to manufacture consent to carry on culling. The data wasn't showing that, so they used a calculated incidence figure to make it look like it was going down. What we pointed out earlier was that the prevalence, that's the actual percentage of herds that have TB, was plateauing in both of those cull zones. So that didn't go with their calculated risk, the incidence risk falling, and now we've got the 2018 data, which has only just come out. That shows a really big increase in Gloucestershire cull zone, which gives the lie to their calculated incidence from their report released in September. These are barefaced lies. There's not a shred of scientific accuracy in what they're saying, and I'm sorry, Mr Eustace does need to retract his statement, and that's why, as a vet, we've written to the Chief Veterinary Officer requesting that she go to her ministers and request retraction, and I'm sure she's done that. You know, I'm not suggesting for a moment that the chief vet is involved in these lies, but you know, we've requested, as she's the head of our profession in government, that she requests that they retract it, and we're expecting retraction. The Godfrey report comes out tomorrow, you know, and this will be, this will be a big news story, and you know, obviously our group has a lot to say on what the Godfrey report says. I can't tell you anything more because it's embargoed till tomorrow.
That's a shame.
But there's some serious issues there as well.
Okay, I mean, Dr. McGill, the other thing is, of course, that you and your group are completely opposed to the badger cull as a policy, but it is, of course, supported by farmers, by the British Veterinary Association. What is it that you know that they don't?
Well, what we know is that we don't have any vested interests, unfortunately. We have no vested interests at all. We don't get paid to do what we do. We don't get any funding from DEFRA. And you know, there's a system set up which is a gravy train of, you know, approaching £150 million of our taxpayers' money this year, and that's going to particular places, and those people are very happy with the status quo. I think farmers, once they realise that they've been lied to by the government, because they're lied to because they're told their herd is officially TB-free, so they get a little certificate, but in actual fact the test is missing 50% of the infected animals, so they've still got TB in their herd. When it recrudesces, when it comes out 6 months or 2 years later, the farmer goes, but I'm officially TB-free. It must be the badgers. And they want to, the farmers are angry, they want to do something. They're under so much pressure, working for 365 days a year to produce milk at scarcely what it costs to produce it. They're under an awful lot of pressure. They want something done. They want to do something. And badgers is what the government are offering them, but it's totally the wrong tool. Absolutely totally the wrong tool. It will have no effect on the disease. What they need to do is focus on the 21st century tools we've got of proper testing and to vaccinate cattle. If we vaccinate cattle, the disease incidence will drop by 60 to 70%. Add a stroke. And I'm sorry, but the British Veterinary Association, excuse me, have been, you know, they've been disgraceful on this. They should have spoken up much earlier to protect the animals, to protect badgers, and also to protect cattle. And they've not done that. They've given a veneer of pseudoscientific support to that to make people think that the veterinary profession support it.
Okay,
the veterinary profession don't.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we must leave it there. Dr. Ian McGill, thank you very much for your time. Good to talk to you there in Brighton. Now, a veterinary campaign group has accused the government of telling barefaced lies about the effectiveness of the ongoing badger cull in southwest England. The Prion interest group said that government claims of a reduced number of bovine TB cases in cattle as a result of the cull were badly wrong. The Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs said it's the right approach and has had a positive impact. Well, we can speak now to an independent researcher into cull policy, Roger Blowy, former partner at the Wood Veterinary Group in Gloucester, and he joins us now via Skype, and we're very grateful to you. I want to ask you, can you say with 100% certainty that badger culls are reducing the number of cases of bovine TB in cattle?
Well, Rebecca, we can certainly say from the data that we have so far that would appear to be the case.
You'll be aware then of what these other vets have said. Why would they accuse the government of barefaced lies?
I simply don't understand that. And clearly what they have done, they have looked at the overall level of TB in Gloucestershire, for example. But like any disease, the disease will fluctuate, it will rise and fall, associated with a whole range of factors. And what we need to do to assess the efficacy of the cull is to look at the incidence of TB within the cull area, and then compare that to the incidence of TB in surrounding areas. And that was done a couple of years ago by Brunton and others, published at the time, published last year. And they looked at TB within the cull area and compared it to TB in the surrounding areas. And for Gloucestershire, they found that there was a 58% reduction in TB in the Gloucestershire cull area compared with surrounding areas, after they had adjusted for a whole number of different variables.
Aren't I right, though, that different results came out in Dorset and that instances of TB have actually risen in that cull area?
I've not seen a similar analysis done in Dorset, but all I do know is, as in Gloucestershire at the moment, there's a little bit of a rise in TB, but as I said at the beginning, you would expect to see rises and fall in a disease simply associated with natural variation. It's only when you compare the cull area with equivalently matched surrounding areas that you're going to get a true effect of the cull. And it's really interesting.